small town business and the way it works, and probably get into some conversation about how we're going to roll forward. I was down for 2 months, and it was rough, and it still is rough. My cosmetologist Kelly over there, she and I went through a lot, and we are very, very happy to have the Lieutenant Governor here to speak with us tonight. And so I'm boring. You don't want to hear about me. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin.
Our new governor. She's beautiful, inside and out.
Well, good evening, everyone. Whoops. Make sure I brought this is not my speech, so don't worry, but there is a purpose, a method to my madness here, this book here. First of all, let me thank Kent and Dan. Thanks to all of you who are here tonight to stand up and fight for what we believe in as Idahoans. You're here tonight supporting our veterans, you're here tonight supporting our small business community, and you're here tonight to protect the values that we treasure, the conservative traditional values that we love so much here in Idaho. And I get asked often, what can we do more to support our veterans? Well, keeping our veterans in business and not ever shutting them down from providing a livelihood is one great thing that we can do for our veterans. This last year has been a very difficult year for all of us. The one thing I will promise to you all as your governor is that I will never shut down a legitimate business. Unless you're making meth or running a prostitution shop, your governor, I will never shut down a legitimate business. And we gotta make sure that never happens again. So that's my pledge to you as your next governor. And Dan asked me tonight to talk to you about what happened last year with the shutdown, the governor's decisions, what I did to help the small business community. And that's actually a really easy thing for me to talk about because I am a small business owner. My husband Jimmy and I, we're from Idaho Falls, Idaho. We have business in the automotive repair. We have a parts distribution shop, a small machine shop. And after I served 10 years in the legislature, I went back home and started up a restaurant in Idaho Falls. And so our restaurant was really affected in the governor's decision to shut down, just like so many small businesses were. So it's easy for me to talk about this, and I think it's good for me to give you a little bit of a perspective of what happened last year. And I have kind of a timeline of events where what I want to do is show you a difference between management style between our current governor and how I would manage the state of Idaho as the governor. Basically, the governor is the CEO of the state. So what happened last year, going all the way back to the 2nd of March, the governor was making decisions on his own about what to do in Idaho. On the 2nd of March, my office intercepted an email between the governor, Senate, House minority and majority leadership, calling them into his office so that he could give them all an update on what was happening with the coronavirus. Well, the lieutenant governor was not invited to that meeting, and I struggled with that all the way through last year, where your lieutenant governor, the second in command of the state, was not invited to the meetings, was not kept abreast of these important issues. Now, how many of you are business owners that are here tonight? A lot of you. So if you're the president of your company, you have a vice president, or maybe you have an assistant manager, Is that how you would run your business? Would you keep your assistant manager or your vice president out of all the important decision-making aspects of your company? Nobody would do that. But that is the way our governor managed the crisis last year. And I told the governor, when we finally did get back together and had a discussion with each other at my request, I asked the governor, I said, Governor, do you think it's prudent to have kept the lieutenant governor, the second in command, completely out of the decision-making process? And I said, God forbid if anything were to happen to you, and my husband was sitting there right with me, he said, we pray for your health and well-being every day, but God forbid if something were to happen to you, that the lieutenant governor, the second in command of the state, would need to step up and run the state in a capacity. It was a very bad management style to not keep the lieutenant governor in the line of communication with the decisions that were made last year. On the 4th of March, the governor formed a coronavirus working group, and no state officials, no legislative leadership, no other constitutional officers were included in this advisory group. Another thing about running business that we know as small business owners, it's important that we surround ourselves with people that aren't just the yes men or women, the ones that just agree and say yes. Tell us what we want to hear. It's really important that we listen to other people, especially key people within our organization. And that is a difference between the current governor and how I will manage the state of Idaho. I like a collaborative approach. I like to sit at the table and talk to people and listen to the ideas and the input of other people, especially when it comes to a complex organization of the state of Idaho. Because we're a beautiful, great, diverse state, and it's important that we listen to each other, and there's different parts of the community around Idaho that need to be taken into consideration. And so some of the things that I did when I served as a state representative, those were some of the experiences I had working in a collaborative manner to solve problems are some of the greatest satisfying experiences that I've had. And so that's how I think it's important that we run our organizations in a more collaborative manner. Let's see, on the timeline, I mean, I don't necessarily need to rehash all of this, but as we progressed through the last year, and the governor was issuing different proclamations and executive orders, there were more and more people that were concerned about what was going on. Laws were being set aside, rules were being set aside, and provisions of the open meeting laws were being set aside. Amazingly, we're still in the emergency session, and these open meeting laws are still not being honored. There's people in Treasure Valley that are trying to get in to go to court services, and they're being prevented from being there present. And that's a due process right of each of us as citizens. So on the 23rd of March, it was 2 days before our governor issued the statewide isolation order. I had a phone call with the governor on the 23rd of March, and he commented to me about how the city of Boise had just shut down all their businesses, and he commented about, he said, well, that's just the people in Boise are just gonna go across the street and go to Garden City and go to the restaurants there. And then 2 days later, we had the statewide isolation order, and I mean, this extensive document that was produced, and it had the director of the Department of Health and Welfare's name on it, But I have to wonder, how did we go from the 23rd of March with no mention to the lieutenant governor, that the governor was about to shut down the state, statewide, order people to stay home, declare some businesses essential and some non-essential, and prevent us from gathering socially and attending church. But that's what happened. That's what happened back then. And so I started pushing back against that and standing up and fighting against it. On the day that he issued his order, I composed a poll on my Facebook page to find out what kind of support do people in Idaho have on this order. I started pushing back, and that's when a lot of people started questioning me. Why are you disagreeing with the governor? Why are you pushing back? Why are you not working with the governor? But the reason why I pushed back is because I knew how devastating this was going to be to our business community. And I was to myself, I kept saying, no matter what the cost, I know it's going to be hard, but I'm going to push back, and I'm going to keep calling on our governor to reopen the state. As time went on, it got harder, but I knew I had to do it because I knew how devastating it would be to our business community, to the people all over the state of Idaho. So I got some flack about that from media, even people within my own party, my own Republican Party. But I did it for a reason, because I did know how devastating it would be to us as a business community. So other things that I did during this time to continue to raise awareness, in Southeast Idaho, we had a virtual car rally, again trying to call on the governor to end the isolation order. And so we had the mayor of Sugar City, the mayor of Rigby, a business owner, myself. We did a car rally we had one in Rexburg, Idaho Falls, Rigby, all over Southeast Idaho. It was a virtual rally, and it was fun. It was creative. And we encouraged people to go and stay in their cars if they didn't want to go outside, and go to the courthouse and just honk their horn, when they were getting excited about some of the things that we were saying, just encouraging people again to be engaged with what was happening in our state, in our business community. I did speak with a person who is a representative of a virtual school, because back then our schools were all being shut down and our kids were not going to class, and in our classrooms the teachers were struggling to understand, what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to keep teaching our kids? So I talked to the CEO of it. It's a K-12 virtual school, and he had offered just pretty much a hands-on blanket, hey, if you just implement this curriculum into the classroom, we will waive a lot of the fees and we'll do all the training. This was being basically thrown out to us as a state, but I could not get a commitment from our governor on whether or not he was supportive of this. And so in our schools, a lot of our classrooms remained locked down and closed up for most of last year. There was a company in North Idaho that was manufacturing ventilators. They were called Percussionaire. And I was trying to work with Director Ritchie, Office of Emergency Management, to find out what hospitals needed ventilators. This company was offering to just give them and distribute them freely out to the community. And I was having a real difficult time getting cooperation from the Department of Health and Welfare and the Office of Emergency Management to get some of these ventilators out there. On the 10th of April, I sent a message to Governor Little, again asking him to lift the statewide isolation order. I sent him a letter on the 13th of April, a letter to the governor asking him that as citizens, we need to have greater clarity on your intention about reopening the state, because his special orders were not clear. It was just like a rolling order that would would expire within a couple of weeks and then be reconsidered, and that would just roll on and on and on. And it's, I mean, when you're a business owner and what was really devastating for the small business community is to have received no notice about the shutdown. It happened on a Thursday at about 1:00 p.m. and it was going to go into effect that same afternoon. And so many of us had placed inventories of perishable goods, food, beverage, and with no notice, our businesses were shut down. And so the same thing goes when it comes to reopening your business. We need to know what to plan for. Are we talking about that we can be able to reopen within the next 2 weeks so we can start gradually building up our inventory and working with our employees? Because again, there's a lot of money that is tied up in these inventories. And these inventories that are perishable, a lot of people lost a lot of money. It was just a lack of real good management and planning for the business community to know what to expect. I asked in the letter, I asked him to eliminate the essential business definition. There shouldn't be any differentiation between a business that's determined as an essential or non-essential. In the McGeachin administration, all businesses are essential. And so, thank you. So I asked our governor to eliminate this contentious definition. And I also asked our governor if he would please consider some historic tax relief for our citizens of Idaho, whether that would be, and in the letter I specifically asked for like the delay of the second half of our local property tax that we all pay. I asked for a delay in the submission of corporate and personal income tax. I asked for a complete elimination of the sales tax while we were all being shut down, because we know that when people are suffering, that's one of the best ways that we can help our citizens, is relieve the tax burden on the community. And unfortunately, the response that I got from the governor back then was that his response to my request for unprecedented tax relief for our citizens was that he had a constitutional duty to balance the budget. And sadly, that's the same story that I keep hearing even today, and when we had the longest legislative session in history, when people were crying out for tax relief, they said, well, we're gonna have to just first see where the budgets settle out, and then we can talk about whatever is left, then we can talk about that as tax relief. It's exactly opposite for how it should be. We should be looking at what can we do for our citizens for tax relief, because Idaho does have some of the higher income tax, sales tax from the surrounding states, and there's only one state that surrounds Idaho that has a lower sales tax and income tax rate than we do. So we have that, and we have a growing problem with local property tax burden. As more and more people are moving into the state, property values are skyrocketing. There's more demands placed on the local government. We're all seeing our property taxes increase. And we didn't see any real relief on property tax after this year. But again, it's because the existing priorities are messed up. It's all about this, finding out where the spending is going to settle out, and then we'll have the discussion about tax relief. And it's just the opposite of how it should work. Let's see. When we were getting mixed messages about how to reopen and how do we operate our businesses safely, our daughter Liza, who runs our restaurant, had already come up with a list of guidelines of what she would do to keep her employees and her customers safe, so we could reopen safely. But we had to wait and depend on the local health districts to tell us whether that was acceptable or not. And we were subject to their approval of what we were gonna do to keep our own customers and our own employees safe. When I did meet with the governor in June, and we had our chance to talk and hash a few things out, at the end of our discussion, and as part of the governor's laying aside rules, agency rules, where a lot of these businesses received citations because they opened up early, I had two of them in my hand. One of them was from Hardware Brewing Company in Kendrick, Idaho. I did go up to visit their reopening on May the 1st because I was invited to be there. I wasn't there encouraging people to break the law or go outside of the government's request, but people all over the state were becoming desperate. They couldn't find a way to pay their electric bills and their mortgages and their rents, and they just said, we're opening, we just have to open because this is survival for us. So I did go up to the Hardware Brewing Company opening, and that company was issued a $2,500 citation. There was another place in Meridian, Slick's Bar in Meridian, also had they sent their citations to me, and I had the citations in my hand. And I went up to the governor. It was just the governor and myself, face to face. And I looked at the governor in the eye and I said, Governor Little, these people are they're hardworking Idahoans. They're just trying to make a living and pay their bills. And I said, I handed him the citations. I said, will you please just make these go away? They didn't. Not only did they not go away, but Hardware Brewing Company got issued 2 other citations subsequently. So it's sad to me to think that this is what happened to our business community. It didn't need to happen. The disease is a terrible disease, but it's not any person's fault, it's not any business's fault. And so we should not have paid the price that we paid. And we saw skyrocketing unemployment. Another thing I offered to the governor is I said, Governor, because we were fielding calls, hundreds and hundreds of phone calls from unemployed Idahoans that could not get through the Department of Labor. Their phone calls were not being returned. And it's crazy because that fall before then, as part of the government efficiency work group that the governor tasked me with, and where we had less than 3% unemployment, we were going around the state shutting down offices. And then the decision, which created widespread unemployment. It just doesn't make any sense. No thought, no forethought in planning and how all this stuff happened. But anyways, people were going weeks and weeks. We had some people that had gone 13, 14 weeks with no unemployment income. And I asked the governor, I said, if you would just give me the authority to go into the Department of Labor, I'm busy trying to run, our business. I'm trying to do the lieutenant governor job, but I will commit myself to go into the Department of Labor, try to understand what is the problem, and help try to figure this out. And I didn't get a response. I didn't even get a response from the governor. I mean, I am a successful businesswoman. I've been married for 34 years to my husband, Jimmy. We together run multiple companies. I served in the legislature for 10 years. I won a statewide race. I am an accomplished woman. I'm not an expert on everything, But if I set my mind to it, like so many of us, if we set our mind to something, we can help figure things out. And that's what I was sincere about that, and I wanted to help out, but I did not get any response even. Well, let's see, was there anything else? Our governor did restrict the use of the hydrochloric. I'm not sure where that came from, because now we've learned that that can be helpful in treating the virus and the illness and prevent people from going to the hospitals. I was asked to serve on the governor's it was called Coronavirus Financial Advisory Committee, CFAC, to offer recommendations to the governor's office on how to spend the $8 billion that came through Idaho last year. And at a time when our hospitals, people were being paraded in front of the cameras and the media and saying that if we didn't change our behavior, people were going to die. Remember that? Our hospitals were going to be overrun and people were going to die. Okay, so I went to work and I put together a proposal which would have purchased some of these modular units that could be used as temporary healthcare facilities. This is not a new idea. They did this in Chicago, they did it in New York, all over the country. These modular units that could be used temporarily outside the hospitals, invest some money into some high-tech equipment, and pay our nurses more. And I put together a proposal to spend, it was about $11 million of that money. And unfortunately, someone from the governor's office leaked the research, did some fake research, and on a piece of equipment that didn't have anything to do with what I had put together. Anyways, I was mocked widely by the media about walking through these disinfectant cubes. Well, this is high-tech equipment that is being used in the Mayo clinics, and a product that was actually developed by some veterans. So, it's just, it was a really it's frustrating year for all of us as citizens, and so much could have been done better and differently, and I don't like to harp too much on that because it's not easy for us to say, well, I would have done it this way or that way. But what I would have done differently is the style, the management style would have been different. And I would have looked to other people. I would have looked to Idahoans, like the great Idahoans, and you, sir, who went down to check my car and see if it's okay. The great Idahoans that just picked me up when my car quit running down the block. They stopped and picked me up. We have so many great people all across the state of Idaho that want to help and have lots of skills and talents to offer. And I would harness that energy. I would harness that talent on any challenge that would come our way. Because together, we can solve the problems that come our way, no matter what it is, and guarantee you there's going to be other things that come our way. And I certainly will work to depoliticize a medical condition. So that was then. This is now. What more can we do to help our business community? There's so much more that we can do to help each other. Again, of course, lower taxes and less regulation is always good. As business people, we just want the government to be off our back. Just get off our back and leave us alone so we can provide for our families. My vision for the state of Idaho, for the government, on top of that, is to have a government that's much more responsive to the needs of the people. I spend a lot of my time as the Lieutenant Governor helping people work through problems and conflicts with the government, whether it's child protection services, their children have been removed from the home. Sometimes people have a hard time seeking gainful employment because of a criminal record that they can't get beyond. Just recently, there are some a subdivision up in St. Mary's, North Idaho, where DEQ, the whole subdivision was basically without water because of some natural tremor in the ground. And DEQ was treating the subdivision as if they were a municipality. So we called DEQ officials and worked with the county officials to help find a solution for these people so that they could just have water, simple things. Our local government officials, our city and our county commissioners, are such a gem, and they're such an underutilized service, I believe, to help us solve the challenges that we have in our state. So whether it's any of those things, again, just work a small business restaurant that was located in outside of Mountain Home. They had a liquor license. They had one of those specialty licenses that was because water was close to their facility. Well, because of the drought, the water had gone down, and the ABC was going to take away their liquor license. So I helped resolve that problem. So what we need to do in government is just have a much more consumer-friendly, service-oriented level of government, and not be so caught up in all the cumbersome rules and regulations that come our way, and free up our citizens, free up our counties, our communities. That's how we can be successful and deal with anything that comes our way. I'm sure that you're all here tonight because you have a concern. You want to help protect Idaho, keep this great state what it is. Idaho is a beautiful state. We have great natural resources. The best thing about Idaho is the people of Idaho, because we're hardworking people, we're independent-minded. We just want to be left alone by our government. But I think you're all here tonight because we're all starting to realize that our state is changing. There are a lot of people that are coming into our state because they recognize what makes Idaho so great, and they're escaping these states that are crazy and have these, complete intrusions into their lives and liberties. They're coming to Idaho, and we have lots of challenges. We have business community that is struggling to find skilled workers. I'm a very strong supporter of skills-based training, internships, apprenticeships. Our State Board of Education wasn't even recognizing some of these accomplishments, these certifications, as part of their go-on rate. And that's insane that we don't recognize that. And no wonder sometimes it's the parental and the familial problem that doesn't want to recognize that as a legitimate path, a legitimate career path. But young people, we can teach them in high school. They can, as soon as they graduate from high school, they can have 6-digit jobs that they're earning and have immediate placement and be earning 6-digit incomes. So we need to be doing more to support those alternative educational paths and supporting our kids in those important careers. Yeah. Also really concerned, as a lot of you may be as well, and a lot of people are starting to wake up to what is being taught in our schools. We know it's happening in our universities. The teaching of critical theory, critical race theory, a social justice agenda, diversity, equity, inclusion, whatever you want to call it, it's all geared towards the same concept of that we don't strive for excellence, and it's more of just like everybody can get a pass, or you pass the grade. You don't get an A anymore, you just pass, and we don't really strive for that excellency in our schools. And we're learning a lot. I formed a task force, and we're learning a lot. In June, we learned about what's happening in our K-12 schools. Not every school is implementing some of these things, but written into the rules or standards is what the problem is. The standards are set to teach our kids something different than how we view our country, the form of government that our country is. We are a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy, but written into the standards of teaching in the classroom on government is to teach the kids about democracy. And we've seen it in the textbooks. Also cited in rule is a reference to national standards and organizations that when it's cited in the rule, we just have to go along with what that federal agency and recommendation is into our schools. And now, over 4th of July weekend, at least now we're having an honest debate because the National Education Association over the 4th of July weekend voted to fight. They said we are going to implement critical race theory in every single school district. We have a plan to implement this in every school district in all 50 states. So at least now we're having an honest and legitimate debate on that issue, because before they were just criticizing us when we were starting to realize and recognize what was going on. Now we're having a legitimate debate about it, and that's good. That's a good thing. So this month we're going to be studying what's happening in the universities even in greater depth. The Biden administration, I'm going to back up a little bit. President Trump recognized that this was a concern that was happening in America, and he commissioned what he called the 1776 Commission and made some recommendations of what we should be teaching in our schools. As soon as President Biden was put into, what's the word? Installed. Yeah, I've been there, I've done that, I can't think of what the name is. Anyways, he repealed that executive order, and President Biden plans to implement these controversial teachings in our schools. He's already developed a grant program to give money to our primary and secondary schools to teach the controversial and debunked 1619 Project and implement teachings of controversial people into this country, into our schools. But there is hope, and we recognize that this is what's happening, and we have a plan to push back against that. Unfortunately, our State Board of Education has kind of bought into this, and after our June meeting, we asked the State Board to please just come talk to us about what the statutes are, what are the rules, how are you going to implement a House bill that was going to prevent this controversial teaching, and please tell us what you think about the Biden rule. They refused to come to our meeting. They did provide written testimony, but they refused to come talk to us. And the very next day, when they didn't show up, they made an announcement that they were having an emergency board meeting the next Monday. So that was 2 weeks ago yesterday. They voted to make the teaching of this equity theory in education a requirement in our university system. And so there's a lot of concern about the direction that we're going in Idaho. For those of you who are aware of what's happening in the Treasure Valley, 3 of the major healthcare providers recently came out with an announcement that all of their employees would be mandated to receive the COVID-19 vaccination or lose their job by September 1st. And there's a lot of people that are upset. There's a rally happening in Boise on Thursday. We'll see how many people show up, but I was kept awake last night. I received over 1,000 text messages from people on this very issue. And the COVID-19 vaccination has done a lot to help a lot of people, and was part of President Trump's Operation Warp Speed. And so I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I encourage people that if you want a vaccine, you should get a vaccine. But some people have reservations about it, and there was just a report that came out just yesterday from the FDA about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine causing, being a factor in a inflammatory disease. So it's concerning what we see happening in our state, but again, I'm inspired and I'm encouraged because I see people like you that are coming out to these meetings, and all over the state I see people getting, becoming more aware and engaged and wanting to fight for Idaho, to protect our lifestyle, protect our great state, protect our freedoms and our liberties, and most importantly, our state sovereignty as well. Because I believe that Idaho will lead the nation in showing the nation how to return back to the principles that makes America so great. We just need to have new and bold leadership to break out of the stalemate and have the debate on these important issues and not just stuff bills into the drawer. So. Thank you. I think I covered everything that I wanted to, but I'm happy to take any questions that any of you might have. Yes, sir.
I live in Payette, and I have a question. I'm a retired contractor, and are you going to encourage high schools to start industrial arts and also home ec to get these young people where they can take a ruler and read it, a measuring cup and know what's it? Are you going to endorse that?
Absolutely. The question is, what are we going to do to help our high school students learn more skill-based, switch to skill-based training? I absolutely support that. We need to go back to some of those things that we had, in shop, and there's some great technical high schools that are popping up all over Idaho. But again, we need to be more supportive of that in general from both our educational institutions and our communities, from our parents, and recognize the value of those skills. The last 2 years I served as the president of the Career Education and Technical Education Foundation, which is meant to raise money so that these kids can have some of those grants to go to school, the skills-based school. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
My name's Nathan Wrights. I own the vape shop down there at Broken Hill Vape Shop. We've seen a lot of bureaucrats lately who have, we keep begging them to give us our freedoms back, and we keep it's this constant, I don't know why we keep asking when we know what the outcome's gonna be. My question is, would you advocate for people actually breaking laws that are unjust and that do trample on our inborn freedoms that nobody else has a right to grant or withhold from us?
I've been accused of encouraging people to be lawbreakers, but I can't be a lawbreaker by day and then I can't be a lawmaker by day and then a lawbreaker by night. I do believe that we should work within the system to try to make effective change on those laws that are cumbersome in our lives. Some of the best ways that we can get engaged is on the local level, running for those school boards, running for those county commissioner levels. Now, you talk about these unaccounted people who are placing some of these restrictions on them. I am very opposed to that, because I do believe in the representative form of government. And I do believe that our health districts especially need to be reconfigured so that they're made up more of people who are directly accountable to you and I, so that when we have a problem, their job is at stake. And I believe in empowering the individual. Again, with the rally that's happening in Boise on Thursday, I'm going to be there in support of those people because I believe in empowering the individual, and that's what I'm seeing is the rallying and the wake-up call of people. That is what will effect change, because the politicians recognize who their boss is when we see this kind of citizen engagement and citizen activism. There's a lot of laws that are out there that I don't like, but I follow them because I think in our conscience we all try to be good citizens. We don't want to just go out and break laws, but I do think that if we want to see a change, we need to get involved and help make that change.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in 1941, it was illegal to hide Jews. And not even 200 years ago, it was illegal to teach black people how to read. And I mean, and right now, it's illegal to sleep on top of a refrigerator in North Carolina outside. I'm serious, like we have so many laws that are absolutely immoral. And that's what I'm saying, like, at what point do we decide, like, no, we're not, like, whatever the law is, I'm going to do the moral thing, even if it means breaking the law. And so that's, I mean, I know it's the hardest question to answer when you have to be on that side of things. But
My husband said, maybe the best thing you could do as a state lawmaker is go to Boise and start repealing useless laws. And there's a lot of value in that.
Hi, my name is Kelly. I'm a small business owner from Fruitland, and tons of questions I'd love to ask.
Yeah,
but
speak
I'm
up.
just gonna go back to
Speak
it.
up so I can.
I'm going to go back to the education. Talking about skill-based education. One thing that's kind of concerning to me is constantly we hear like Governor Little, we need more money for education, more money, and yet simultaneously we keep hearing how Idaho's ranked so low when it comes to education. So to me, just common sense, it doesn't seem that more money is solving the problem. It needs to be more innovative learning, like our skill-based education. So you, as a governor, or future governor, are you going to be looking into more of those innovative ways to educate, like skill-based learning, as opposed to just, I'm going to run for governor, we're going to throw more money at it, but we never really see the actual education improving, just more of the social indoctrination, which of course doesn't do anyone any good, unless you're trying to ruin our country, which
That's right. And I mean, I almost wonder if the people are advocating, they want us to continue to have bad scores with our students. They want us to be ranked as having low go-on rates, because when that happens, it's just the solution is just they need more money. That's the solution. And I'm against that. We should not be proud. We should have in our Constitution, we shouldn't just say we should have a thorough education for our kids. We should be saying we should have an excellent education for our kids. And we should be doing whatever we need to do to have an excellent education for our kids, to prepare them for their careers and their futures. And choice is a part of that. Education choice is a part of that. I do support education choice. I support public schools, but I believe that it's not our teachers that are the problems. The teachers that I know, I have sisters and best friends that are teachers, and they want to just teach. But it's the system that we have now that is a problem, where our teachers now have to do everything from give them codes, feed them breakfast, give them their medication. They can't have any kind of accountability in the classroom because their administration won't support them or the parents won't support them. We need to change the system, and I think having choice in the system is a part of that solution. You got to ask let's ask ourselves, why? If Idaho is such a red state, ruby red state, why do we not have education choice in Idaho? I mean, we do support homeschoolers very, very well. But why do we not have vouchers or tax credits where money can follow the child? And if the parent is really unhappy with what the education they're getting in the classroom, they can take the child and put them somewhere else. That is going to be the thing that really works to improve our educational excellence in Idaho.
Yeah, a quick question. So with the increasing amount of federal overreach, Governor Little has signed, if I'm not mistaken, a couple bills that have a lot of strings attached to them with money coming into Idaho, with a lot of federal overreach with that. So even with education and the needs that we do have, how are you going to help out Idahoans in these areas without receiving federal overreach and federal funds?
When I campaigned for Lieutenant Governor, that was one of my campaign issues, is I was carrying around this graphic of the state of Idaho talking about how 39% at the time, this was 3 years ago, 39% of our state budget was comprised of federal dollars, and those federal dollars built into all of our budgets in Medicaid, in schools, and the roads, that it all comes with strings attached. Now, I don't have a problem with us taking our share of the federal money if we can do what we think is right for us as a state. If we want to teach, the 1776 Commission in our classrooms and not be forced to teach the 1619 project, then that's good. To me, that's a good thing. But when the government dictates to us what we may or may not do with that money, then it's a problem. How do we deal with that? We have to gradually wean ourselves off of that money, at least quit taking it. We took $8 billion last year. We're set to take another $8 billion this year. There's definitely inflation in our economy now because of this. But what we need to do is work to increase the productivity of our state and be able to utilize the resources that our God blessed, we've been blessed with natural resources. And we need to be able to utilize those more and better. With 60% of Idaho land being tied up in federal management, that takes a lot off the table for our citizens. And we need to take more advantage of the programs that are available to free up those lands and those resources for the benefit of our citizens and increasing productivity. Yes, sir.
I have a suggestion and a question. Suggestion is we need a welcome wagon program, an ongoing program to educate people coming here from other states to ensure that they understand why they shouldn't let Idaho go through what the places they came from went through. I would really like to see something like that put in place. Second, based on my experience and having watched what happened to Donald Trump over 4 years, when you tackle going into the governorship, you're going to have a large establishment there, the hidden power structure and everything else. A lot of those people are going to be working against you. Do you have a battle plan for that?
Do I have a what?
A battle plan to deal with that?
It's my what do you call it? Your mode of operation every day. Just today. So last week, I am the Lieutenant Governor. I called because of this vaccination mandate that came out last week. I wrote a letter and made a formal request to the Speaker of the House to call the House back into session so that we can discuss this important issue. It was reported by IACI, big Idaho Association of Commerce and Industry. They came out with a letter today. They said, we voted unanimously we're vehemently opposed to the Lieutenant Governor's demand that the legislature come into session and place more burdensome regulations on the business community. I didn't even say anything about what the solution was. What I'm saying is we need to have the debate. And if they, you know, if some people want to call it whatever they want, that it's government intrusion, and so therefore we're not even going to debate these issues. Well, that's not the governor that you're going to get. I am not going to be afraid to have those difficult debates on issues. And your first recommendation was to form a welcome wagon of the state. That's a good suggestion. But I think that maybe the best place for that to be might be within our local communities, maybe encouraged by the state. You have a question?
No, actually, I don't. I think that was
Time to go.
probably.
I want one more question.
What's that?
One more question.
One more question for Pam. All right.
Just what you were speaking about. Excuse me. How is it that corporations and private businesses, where we don't want to step on their rights and their personnel policies and procedures, but where do we draw the line when they're stepping on my liberties and my constitutional rights? What do we do?
Well, the question is how do we deal with companies that want to impose their requirements on us as individuals and our bodies? There's different ways to deal with this. Instead of saying we're going to pass that you just flat out can't do it, which that is an option, and I'm not saying what the solution should be. That's an option. That was a bill that was proposed. Another option might be holding these companies accountable for that requirement, although I think it'd be awful and sad if they forced a person to get the vaccine and the person ended up dying. There's no recourse for the person. So the accountability and immunity protection can only go so far to the individual. But there are other ideas that are out there. Informed consent. I mean, for every person that got the vaccination, did you receive a full disclosure of all the potential risks? I don't know. That's, and there are tax implications. A lot of these companies receive a lot of money from our tax. They receive a lot of taxpayers' dollars, so they're not totally independent, free businesses like the mom and pop shop that's out there. So maybe that's something that we need to be taking a look at. The question, I do have an appointment with the governor tomorrow, and I am going to ask him that question. Where is this coming from? Why are they debating this now when we've never had this discussion up until last week, where they're going to mandate this? Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your interest in what's happening in our state, and encourage you to come out and support our local business owners and enjoy the rest of your evening with your family in the beautiful weather outside. Thank you.
Give a big round of applause. Thank you.
God bless you. And
Thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen. And as the Lieutenant Governor
Please
mentioned,
share,
we do have some
subscribe
food out there.
to my
Lt.Gov
channel.
Street Food and Catering. Terry Fisher, he's a
And be
great
there,
guy.
like
It is
she
all
said,
paid
Thursday
for.
at
Go get yourself
9:30
to eat. I hope you had a really good time.
for the
I hope
rally
This is the first of
this
many,
week.
many
Love you all.
opportunities to have politicians up on this stage speaking to the good citizens.